that some of the larger organizations are starting to put a metric towards how much of a person's salary do they associate with their expected token spend, to judge their productivity in regards to their expected output.
We are the Keyboard Samurai, podcast about the business of cyber and tech, here to help you or your business improve. Here's your host, Wil Klu. Let's hack into it now. Hey, everybody, welcome back. As always, exciting episodes. Like, subscribe, all that good same stuff. Today, we're going to have yet another AI topic, but we're going to get specific into agentic AI and governance around it. But before we do that, Christophe, you want to give everybody the 30 seconds of who you are and why we care?
Sure. So, been around tech and IT for over 20 years. Lately been focused in helping SMBs and large organizations with cloud modernization, data governance, and getting prepared for an AI age. And with that, I've started to see that data governance and identity management of their agents and being prepared for that is something that is sorely missing. So it's become kind of my passion area. So at home, I'm coding, I'm learning about how agents function, so that at work, I can say, yes, this is actually how it works, and this is what we can do to help manage it. And while the scales might be different between 2 machines and 3,000 machines, or 10 machines in my home lab and 10,000 machines, the principles really do apply and scale. But then I get to work with other great tech companies, and they allow me to look at their software. We talk through their tech, we talk through their strategies, and that's really allowed me to see, hey, these are some of the ways that we can start to do this and manage this. And I'd say for the past 10 years, it's mainly been Microsoft 365 focused. So a lot of Purview, a lot of Purview management, while I've operated in a AWS environment, a GCP environment, connecting a hybrid environment, because who's not in all three these days? Those in a highly regulated environment, CMMC, HITRUST, healthcare, fintechs, been everywhere. So between all the regulations, understanding the requirements, and then with AI, everyone wants to do more with less, whether that means less people or more efficient people. The goal has been striving towards, well, how can we use AI to do that better? And lately, that's been where the conversation around agents and agents helping you to do that has started to evolve. So that's why I figured today that would be a great topic for us to talk about.
No, I love it. Like you said, everything's evolving, right? Everything we've seen in the industry, especially around AI, and quite rapidly. But also, it's interesting to me to see, we all say, well, I say we all, a lot of us in the industry have all been saying for a while now, identity is the new perimeter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have all of these basically non-human identities in agentic AI. And so I guess when we look at how, like, identity governance is hard to begin with, right? Let's be regular old identity governance is a pain, and that's why there's all kinds of tools to try and make it easier for you. But now you've got agentic AI and their identities. So I guess when I think about things foundationally, where's the starting point?
Well, some of the starting point is really thinking through your journey, right? What do you want your agent to do? What sort of permissions do you want to give it? And kind of thinking through that from an SDLC process from the beginning, doing that threat model from the beginning, and not just vibe coding your way to a solution and then going, oh, well, we need to add on some security at the end to try to secure it. No, because by then it's too late. You've given either an agent the ability to operate with its own identity, but then the ability to either assume credentials anywhere in the environment where it can find them, or the ability to assume your identity because you're the one that spawned it, and then it operates as you. So sometimes in audit logs, you're the one that spawned the agent, so you're the one that's responsible for its activities. So when you start to think about from who did what from an audit perspective, that's something to think about. So you kind of have to go back from the beginning and think about how do you want to design it, whether it's an agent or an application. Think through the threat model. What do you want to achieve, and do that. And things are moving so quickly that companies are often like caught up and left behind. So while you're building your own agents, you can have them design what they need to operate, what sort of permissions they need, and map that out as part of the build process. So you have that in the artifacts, and then you can decide, no, I want you to operate with less permissions, and then you ensure that it gets built out with less permissions, and then you validate that as part of your build process. But then the other thing is validating that in the environment. So within the 365 environment, they have some native tools that kind of expose what AI agents are in the environment, what permissions they have, and sort of allow you to have a grasp around what's out there. If not, there's a load of other governance tools that allows you to kind of perimeterize how agents are operating in your environment, put some guardrails around them so you can say, hey, this is how I want my agents to operate. This is the type of data I want them to touch. These are the applications I want them to talk to or not. Maybe you don't want them to talk to your Salesforce database, or you do, or your ADP database, or you do. Those are threat modeling decisions or productivity decisions that you kind of have to decide along the way.
Don't just vibe code your way to a solution. I love
Yes.
that. So, and as somebody who talks a lot at the higher level about process and risk management in general, it's refreshing to me that the foundation of getting started still goes back to the business process, right? Think about what it is you want to do. And this is something that is sort of project management fundamentally, right? Whenever you're going to embark on something new, step one is to really think about what are you actually going to do with this tool, technology, new process, and understand that. And if you spend just a little bit extra time in planning, I guarantee you that that delay you have from not getting started pushing buttons right away will be more than made up for, because if you just dive right into the tech at the beginning, you almost always end up going, oh, we forgot this and we forgot that, and now and you end up backtracking and redoing things a bunch of times. So take a little time up front, map it out. And I also love again, talking a lot lately about exposure management, attack path mapping, the way that we're dealing with cybersecurity today, and the fact that attackers can pretty much use anything they want, right? Like they can vibe code whatever they want. They don't have any governance, they don't have any regulations, so they can do whatever they want. So us on the defensive side really have to think about, okay, we need to focus our time in the right places, right? And so actually understanding, well, if I give this agentic AI access to A, B, and C, all right, what happens if that's compromised? Or does that open up? Does that create another risk?
And then you also have to think about, okay, so my environment is this fluid. What can I do instead of the traditional, hey, we went through this architectural approval 3 months ago, and therefore I think we're good. No, this needs to be just as fluid. You need to be just as on top of the changes into your environment with AI, and everything almost needs to be compliance as code, as things are building, as things are deploying, um, as agents are spawning up. So you almost need to be using AI to validate AI from an identity management perspective, from a data access perspective, and then there's that whole other aspect of business process management. Like, okay, so you're having it access this data. What do you want to do with it? What was the expected outcome at the end? Do you even know that? Like sometimes you're like, oh, go access my database and magically turn it out into this magical report for me. But how does it do that? If you don't tell it how to do that, you're not going to get the expected outcome for it to do that, or it might do some things that might break the process or destroy the integrity of your data in the process. So be careful what you ask for, because these agents will deliver on intent.
Mhm.
So you need to understand the intent that you're giving them.
No magical output.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
like,
No magical eight
we,
ball.
we all learned that when we first started using AI. We're like, well, do this thing. No, do it better. Right? That
Yeah,
doesn't work.
exactly.
It's kind of like any other, entry level employee. This is what I want you to do. This is how you're going to do the task. In this case, maybe a little more micromanagement. And this is what I expect from you when it's done. You don't do that, then you can't be responsible for the output.
Yeah, so it almost gets back to like you said. So you kind of have to code that context, that intent into the prompt, into the development of what you're doing. So if you don't fully understand how you would say communicate that to an intern for them to be able to properly develop what you're expecting them to do, um, an AI agent might not be able to deliver on that. And while sure, some of them are super smart and they might be able to um, work through the problem and get to what you're looking for, it might also cost you a lot from a token perspective as it works through this problem. When if you had just thought a little bit longer, gathered a little more context, provided it with maybe some documentation um, in a m.md file as to what you wanted it to do, what good looks like, what good doesn't look like, what sort of output format you're looking at, what sort of applications you need to interact with, and you give it all that from the beginning. It might cost you half as much in your tokens or even less, because it knows exactly what you want to do versus, oh, well, just magically do all this and oh, there goes your monthly token allotment in one shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say, well, if you don't know how to do this, go learn it, go become PhD level, and then every single task you didn't explicitly teach it how to do, it just constantly you're paying it to learn. Again, kind of like an entry level, which I guess begs the question, how different is like an agentic AI to, I wouldn't say an entry level resource, but like an actual person doing it that you have to manage.
Um, I would say so. Some of them are a little are very refined and sophisticated. So, for example, like your codex engines are very refined when it comes to coding. Your Claude Opus models are very refined when it comes to understanding business context and documentation and doing that. So with the right intent, they might be a little more developed than say your intern, but you still do have to think about how much token cost do you want to assume that you want to spend to a certain individual. So um, I've been listening to some podcasts, and I find this a very interesting statistic that some of the larger organizations are starting to put a metric towards how much of a person's salary do they associate with their expected token spend, um, to judge their productivity in regards to their expected output. So if on an API level for large enterprises, you no longer have um, a token limit. Essentially,
Mhm.
everything's unlimited because they just build to your API. So they start to track your limit. So developers that may have an annual salary of 200, 300, 400K, these large companies are expecting them to spend up to half of their salary in optimizing their outputted code, but they're expecting 10x the
Mhm.
output in return.
Yeah, because
So
they're expecting, well, this is what you're paid and what worth. If I combine you with AI, it's now worth
correct.
10x. So now they have to focus on becoming an AI expert to make themselves better, which kind of all of us really have to do. But like having that as a metric is kind of wild to me.
Yes, exactly. It's a wild metric to think of that we're all becoming prompt engineers in some form or fashion, and your project managers are moving away from managing projects to optimizing token spend,
Mm,
to negotiating spend contracts with model vendors, having those types of conversations, and ensuring that their models available when they need it. So, for example, a lot of folks with the recent, um, let's say, government activity have both seen some increased usage of Claude because they stood up to what they saw as a line in the sand. And then people are like, okay, cool, I want to use this company. But with that increased usage, now the demand outpaced what they had available to deliver on that. So their 5 9s started turning into 1 9 or 2 9s. And then on the other hand, you had OpenAI that was also delivering groundbreaking models, but on a different side of the spectrum towards coding, towards machine use, towards how do we take this thing that's connected to our keyboard and allow us to really empower us to deliver on more where we use it, right? So Claude is okay, how do we take our knowledge and potentially synthesize it and enhance it for business use? And OpenAI kind of went the other way, like, okay, well, how do we develop better applications and better systems in order to use computers better or
mhm.
develop new applications, develop new skills? So they went at it in totally different ways. And sure, you can use them to do the same things. I mean, LLMs can be used to build anything in the same fashion, but their their design, their intent, they have those strengths in totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And your company might choose one AI over the other for certain reasons. Like you might go with Copilot because you're a Microsoft shop, and they might go, well, use Copilot. And you're like, well, I don't really like Copilot.
Or I
Well,
can't afford to.
or
Like
you can't afford to, but Copilot like has a lot of access to
everything.
everything where where you have all your data stored, right? So when properly enabled, you can use it to really drive business productivity that up until recently, with some of Claude's recent releases, none of the other AI systems ever had. So that hook, Google is trying to do that over on the Gemini side, but their models were kind of designed to do the opposite. Like, how can we do deep thinking for research, for analysis? And while their models might be great for that sort of research, general use and daily productivity is really not where they specialize.
Yeah,
So
those two companies had been, I don't want to say polar opposites, but the way they go to market is very different. Like, even if I look back, even at the simplest thing, like the way that Gmail functions over Outlook is very different. And I remember talking to I'm going on a rant here, but I remember talking to somebody and they said, if you start thinking about Gmail as a search engine instead of an email tool, it makes more sense. And then it's like, oh, and then you start to look at G Suite versus Office. You're like, okay, yeah, they think about things very differently. So they're building for a different organization,
they're building for a search capability, a data optimization capability, whereas Microsoft was building for a data knowledge and a
ecosystem almost. I mean, pretty much, platform basically at this point.
So you had structured and unstructured knowledge, and Microsoft had access to archive all of that, and that's where they were able to take advantage of that. So now the other models over the past 5 years is really where AI has evolved, are starting to make inroads into that. But now, so as you mentioned, like, companies are expecting individuals to empower and enable themselves. So how do we make that push to our leaders that, well, you already invested into Copilot or Gemini, but I really need Claude, or I really need Codex, or I really need Cursor, or whatever it is. How do we make that business case? Well, you don't question the underlying decision that they made for the organization. That might have been a smart business decision for them. They might have gotten some incentive from the provider to enable that function. So it might have been, hey, let's get some increased use, and you might get it for free, or you might get heavily discounted, et cetera, et cetera. So you go to your leaders and you go, well, this is a specialized area in which I do these tasks. This is how long it would take me to do it with Copilot. And this is how long it would take me to do it with this other tool.
Right.
And
the cost.
You measure. Exactly. Exactly. And how long it might take you. Okay, so you did it in Copilot, and then now you have to go back and retweak and make the changes, and who's your target audience, and the level of output that they expect. And then now you go, okay, well, so I did it at my scale, and that cost me, say, 3-4 hours a week. And I have 10 people on my team, and I interviewed 10 people, and that number roughly equates to about how many hours they spend readjusting their AI tasks. And then you kind of do a sample of other departments in your organization. And then you go to your leadership and go, okay, so just by a rough sample, I went around and I talked to this many developers or this many users that do this very specialized task, that could use this very specialized tool for this use case. And we would save this many human hours in any given week for this use case. So our salaries would roughly equate to this, and this is what it would cost to get this tool.
Right.
Where this makes financial sense for us to actually get this tool, and at least to do a POC to ensure that we're getting a little more value out of the team that we're expecting.
Right. And I think it's important, like everything you just said, like kind of all culminates into, look, everybody's everybody has AI now, so it's not a matter of, oh, well, we have to use the one we have. It's just like everything else, right? We've got different applications to do different things. Most organizations even have applications that have the capability to do stuff that other ones are doing, but they like the other one better. Like that's just the world we live in. They have to get used to using multiple AIs and not just the one they're prepackaged with. That would be my takeaway from that. Christophe, this has been awesome, man. Where can everybody find you on the interwebs if they want to?
They could find me on LinkedIn, or they can find me on Substack at substack.cpf-coaching.com. And I have a newsletter there that I do on a weekly basis for tech and cyber leaders for keeping up with the ever-changing environment.
That's outstanding. We'll have all the links in our doobly-doo down here as well. I really appreciate your time, man. This has been outstanding and fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow Wil and the podcast on LinkedIn/Wil Klu. Visit Wil Klu ME for information on services he offers to help your cyber or tech business grow. Until next time, Synaculator.